Hello, friends. Thank you for being here. Each of you makes this channel alive and special. Thanks to your support, I can share stories, thoughts, and emotions that hopefully resonate in your heart. If you have just started exploring my content, welcome. Real-life stories are waiting for you here. Subscribe, like, and share your impressions. Your voice is very important to me. My daughter accidentally left the phone on the counter without hanging up, and that's when I caught the conversation. They were saying it was time for me to move into a nursing home, like I was some sort of problem. Hearing that felt like a slap to the face, and though I kept quiet, it felt like something broke inside me. I sold the house for $890,000 in the end. When they got back from their business trip, all full of cheer, they got a surprise. Their keys didn't work on the lock. A note was left on the doorstep, and reading it left them fuming. That's when I realized they wouldn't just let it go. Things were just getting started. My phone rang just as I finished the last bite of a meatloaf dinner. Ellen used to make it amazingly, though mine was never quite the same. I looked at the caller ID and couldn't help but smile a bit. It was Caitlin. "Hey, Dad, how are you doing?" she asked, with the same warm tone that always gave me mixed feelings of love and loneliness. I sank into the chair that Ellen used to sit in, worn down from her many reading sprees over the years. "Oh, you know me, kiddo. Just finished eating and about to watch the news." I didn't mention the leftovers from 3 days ago or the hour I spent staring at Ellen's picture above the fireplace. "Are you eating well? Remember, you can order food online. I showed you, didn't I?" "I'm eating perfectly fine," I said, cutting in gently. "Though I had a little scare yesterday, I forgot to turn off the burner on the coffee pot. Lucky I caught the smell from the living room." She paused, and I imagined her frowning like her mom used to, the way that little crease appeared between her eyebrows. "Dad, maybe it's time we look into having someone check on you a bit more." "Jeremy says I'm doing okay, Caitlin. How's the business trip? You're still in Phoenix?" "Yeah, the conference ends tomorrow. Jeremy's been dealing with most meetings while I go through endless digital marketing sessions." She chuckled, but it sounded slightly forced. "Listen, Dad, I've got to go. Jeremy and I have a dinner with some investors." "All right, sweetheart, I love you." "Love you too, Dad. Take care, okay?" After the click, I heard some shuffling and figured she tossed the phone into her bag. Just before I hung up, I could hear their voices, not clearly, but enough to understand. "Jeremy, did you notice how he's slipping away?" The warmth in Caitlin's voice was gone. "He forgot the stove yesterday. What if he accidentally burns the house down?" My hand paused on the phone, coldness seeping into me. "He has to go to a nursing home, Caitlin." Jeremy said it as if it was a settled matter. "He's becoming too much of a burden. You know that. Your dad's a great guy, but he can't handle living by himself anymore. The house might fetch close to $1 million now." Caitlin replied, all businesslike. "In the Denver market, we might snag $900,000, maybe even more." Jeremy seemed pleased. "Sell it, find him a decent place, not too extravagant, and finally buy that Boulder house we've been eyeing, the one with the mountain view." My daughter actually laughed. "Oh, Jeremy, you should have seen him tonight, so grateful just to hear my voice. He doesn't see this coming. If we wait much longer, his confusion will only worsen. We should act while he still trusts us completely." The phone slipped from my numb hand, landing on the floor Ellen and I had put down together 23 years ago. We laid every plank and hammered every nail for our family's future. I sat in the quiet house, staring at Ellen's photo. Her eyes seemed to meet mine, giving off an unreadable expression. Was it disappointment, a warning, or simply knowing something I didn't? Ellen's grandfather clock, a gift she gave me 15 years ago, ticked away in the growing shadows. Outside, the night air filled with the first songs of spring as crickets sang in Ellen's garden, which I still tended. The warmth from Caitlin's earlier call was replaced with something cold and hard in my chest. My hands, toughened by years of construction work, slowly curled into fists. They saw me as a problem, thought I was lost, unable to take care of myself, and ready to be pushed around. They were already burning through my money, getting ready to live it up once they thought I was out of the picture. But surprise, I wasn't dead yet, and definitely not as clueless as they assumed. I have no idea how long I sat there in the dark, staring at Ellen's photo in that silver frame on the corner table. The whole vibe of the house had changed, almost like the walls overheard my daughter's scheming and were holding their breath. When I finally got up to turn on the lamp, my legs felt all wobbly. The warm light spread out over the living room, the one we'd built up over time. Each piece was chosen with care, paid for with sacrifices. The burgundy couch where Caitlin would curl up doing her homework. The coffee table I'd made myself in the garage, smoothing it down while she played nearby. I ended up in the kitchen, rummaging through the drawer where I kept old receipts and papers. Almost without realizing, my hand went straight to the folder I needed. 20 years' worth of financial records Ellen always insisted on keeping. "You never know when they might come in handy," she'd say. "University of Colorado receipts, $48,000 spent over 4 years. I remembered working my tail off with double shifts, coming home covered in concrete dust with plaster under my nails. Ellen would always have coffee ready and give me a rub on the shoulders while I sat at that kitchen table handling bills. "Roy, you're working yourself into an early grave," she'd warned once, watching me figure out how to pay for Caitlin's next semester. "She deserves a better start than we had, Ellen. She's got the smarts for anything." Ellen kissed the top of my head. "Just make sure she doesn't forget to appreciate it." I should have listened. Really, I should have. The wedding expenses were in there too, $32,000 gone in just one day. I'd told Caitlin we could do $5,000, maybe stretch to $8,000, but she broke down crying about her dream wedding. For 6 months, I worked weekends laying hardwood floors under the table for a contractor buddy. "Daddy, you're the best dad in the world," she'd whispered during our father-daughter dance, her head on my shoulder, her wedding dress rustling against my rented tux. I'll never forget that, but she did, just like she forgot who co-signed her first car loan when her credit was bad, forgot who made calls to land her a marketing job after 8 months of no luck post-college. I pulled out bank statements from 2 years back when Jeremy lost his job as a financial advisor for reasons never really explained. They moved in with me, just until Jeremy found a new job, they said. I never charged them rent, covered extra utility bills and bought groceries for 3 adults instead of just a lonely widower. Jeremy would pat my shoulder and call me the most generous guy in Colorado. Caitlin would hug me, promising, "Dad, we'll pay you back once we're stable." They'd been stable for a while now, both with good jobs, making more money than I ever did. But the subject of moving out or paying back never came up. The expensive anniversary dinner I treated them to, $200 at a fancy downtown steakhouse because Jeremy said they deserved to celebrate. The $3,000 I spent fixing Jeremy's BMW when the transmission went out, emptying my emergency fund. "Roy's like a father to me," Jeremy would declare to friends at BBQs, slinging an arm around me. I felt proud, really proud, to be the supportive father-in-law who always had the family's back, no matter the cost. I trudged upstairs to what used to be Ellen's and my room, left untouched for 2 years. Her jewelry box was still on the dresser, glasses folded beside the lamp. Reaching into the bottom drawer for those important papers, I pulled out our original house deed. Roy and Ellen Hayes bought it in '99. No loans, no co-signers, no strings attached. And now, it was just in my name with Ellen gone. Standing there in the quiet of the room where Ellen spent her last days, something shifted inside me. The sting of betrayal was sharp, like a shard of glass wedged in my gut. But beneath that hurt, something more solid was starting to form. They thought they could put me away and sell everything I'd worked for, seeing me as just some washed-up, out-of-touch old man who should be grateful for their... I gathered my will to stand up for myself, casting a look at the photo of Ellen on the nightstand. Her words from long ago echoed in my head. Don't spoil her so much that she forgets gratitude. Well, Ellen, our daughter seemed to have overlooked that lesson, but she was about to find out her old man wasn't as defenseless as she thought. I stepped into my home office and grabbed a business card tucked away in my desk drawer for 3 years. Todd Fisher, real estate attorney. Ellen had recommended I meet him after her cancer diagnosis to ensure everything was in order. Time to pay him another visit. The following morning, I drifted through my house as if seeing it anew. Instead of cherished memories, I saw what Caitlin and Jeremy did. Square footage, market value, assets ripe for cash. In the kitchen, my fingers traced the granite countertop I had installed myself, toiling late into the night after my day job because hiring help wasn't an option. Ellen had picked the design, speckled gray with golden veins glistening in the morning sun. She'd made coffee here every day for 16 years until cancer drained her strength. I recalled a Christmas morning when little Caitlin, just 3, took her first wobbly steps from the fridge to Ellen's open arms. Tears of joy flowed as Ellen hoisted her up and twirled around while I fumbled for the camera. Our baby's walking in the home we built for her, Ellen had whispered, tears streaming down. The living room was home to 25 years of Christmas mornings. I could still see 7-year-old Caitlin's eyes light up when she spotted the dollhouse I secretly worked on in the garage for 3 months. Ellen made miniature curtains for its windows and turned cardboard scraps into tiny furniture. "Daddy, it's like our house," Caitlin had shrieked. And it was. A perfect replica, right down to the bay window in what was her room. That bay window cost me 6 months of overtime. Ellen saw it in a magazine and loved the idea of reading there in the afternoons. I learned to cut angles I'd never tried, measured over and over until my back protested. "Roy, we can't afford this," Ellen worried after seeing my measurements on the wall. I told her, "You want it? You'll have it. I'll figure it out." I headed up to Caitlin's old room, still painted the soft yellow she chose for her 16th birthday. It was adorned with photos of high school pals and college moments. It was where I rocked her through her colicky baby nights, where Ellen and I tackled algebra questions on the little white desk I'd made to fit snugly under the window. The master bedroom was the hardest. Ellen's side of the bed still had her water glass on the nightstand, her book open to page 247, forever unfinished. I'd built these walk-in closets myself, designed to suit Ellen's height, her clothes still hanging, faintly smelling of her perfume. This was the room where dreams and future plans were whispered, where Ellen passed away with my hand in hers as machines whirred around us. "Promise me you won't let them take advantage of you," she'd said softly near the end. "You're too kind, Roy, too giving. Promise me you'll look after yourself." I'd promised, but hadn't kept it, had I? In my home office, I discovered the folder full of construction photos Ellen treasured, capturing me as I laid the foundation in spring 1999. 25 years younger and 50 pounds heavier. Me and my crew erecting the frame, Ellen in a hard hat bringing us lemonade on sweltering days, her belly just starting to show. The financial documents from that time told a story Ellen's photos couldn't. A second mortgage, borrowing from my brother, Ellen taking a part-time job to help with expenses. We survived on beans and rice, drove cars held together by prayers and duct tape. But we built this home with our sweat, sacrifice, and love for each other and the family we longed for. And now, my daughter, who once toddled her first steps in our kitchen and frolicked in the garden I had proudly designed, was now plotting to sell the house and push me aside like old furniture. I picked up Todd Fisher's business card from my desk. Its edges were frayed from years of handling, but the phone number was as clear as ever. Caitlin and Jeremy thought they were dealing with an old man, ready to cave for any scrap of attention. They believed I was frail and clueless, willing to hand over my life's work without resistance. They were about to see just how mistaken they were. I dialed Todd's number, my hands as steady as a rock, listening to the phone ring. Outside, the spring morning was dazzling and fresh. A day Ellen would have loved, perfect for a fresh start. Todd Fisher's law office, Pfizer and Associates, occupied the second floor of a straightforward brick building on Kfax Avenue, focusing on everyday folks instead of big corporate clients. I donned my best suit, the charcoal one Ellen had chosen for her funeral, and arrived 15 minutes early, my handwriting only slightly shaky as I signed in at reception. Todd Fisher was younger than I had envisioned, probably around 55, with gray streaks at his temples and the calm air of someone well-versed in family drama. His office was packed with law books and family photos, a wife, 2 teenagers, a golden retriever, the sort of life Ellen and I had dreamed of. "Mr. Hayes, it's good to see you again," Todd welcomed me, pouring coffee from a machine in the corner, the aroma mingling with stacks of paperwork and file cabinets. "I remember you and Ellen from a while back. I'm sorry for your loss." "Thank you," I said, slightly amazed at the firmness of my voice. "I need to discuss something sensitive about my daughter and son-in-law," I explained. Todd leaned into his chair, pen poised, saying, "I'm all ears." I spilled everything: the call, the overheard scheming, their plan to sell my house and tuck me away in a nursing home. Todd's expression didn't change, but I noticed a hint of disapproval as I described their eagerness to blow my savings on a Boulder dream house. "Unfortunately, Mr. Hayes, this situation is more common than you'd think," Todd remarked, setting his pen down and reclining a bit. "Adult kids often think they know what's best for their aging parents, especially when there's significant money involved. But can they do anything legally?" I pressed. "Let's cover the basics. The house is solely in your name since your wife passed away, right?" "That's correct. Ellen and I co-owned it, but it automatically transferred to me after she died." "Then, your daughter and son-in-law have absolutely no legal right to your property. They can't sell it, force you into care, or make financial choices for you unless you give them explicit permission," Todd clarified, taking out a legal pad and making some notes. "The house is your domain, period." A wave of relief rolled over me, swiftly followed by a sharper emotion. "So, if I wanted to sell it myself—" "You could put it on the market tomorrow if that's what you want. It's your choice," Todd confirmed, glancing up from his notes. "May I ask why you're considering this?" I recalled Caitlin's dismissive laugh when she called me a burden, Jeremy's cold judgment, and how they saw my 25 years of hard work as just another property deal. They see me as weak, confused. They aim to treat me like a piece of property. My grip tightened around the coffee cup. Maybe it's time I show them I'm still sharp. Todd watched me in silence for a moment. "The Denver housing market is booming right now, especially in your neighborhood. Homes are selling fast, often with offers above the asking price," he pointed out. "If you're really determined to sell quickly while your daughter and son-in-law are away, how fast could that be accomplished?" "With the right buyer, and there are plenty of investors interested in houses like yours, we could finalize a sale in a week, maybe even less." Todd nodded, leaning in. "But Mr. Hayes, this is a serious choice. Once it's done, there's no reversing it. I put together that house myself, Mr. Fisher. Every board, every nail, every little detail. I'm well aware of my capabilities. We spent the next hour going over practical matters, figuring out market values, talking about networks of cash buyers, and discussing legal necessities. Todd told me he could have everything ready in a day if I was serious. As I was about to leave, he added, "The consultation fee is $200, but it'll count toward the legal fees if you decide to sell." I handed him the cash and felt more clear-headed than I had in ages. As I walked to my truck under the warm spring sun, my phone buzzed in my pocket. Seeing Caitlin's name on the screen, I grinned for the first time since her betrayal. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times. I imagined her in some hotel lobby in Phoenix, checking the time, wondering why her old dad wasn't rushing to pick up. Let her guess. Let her and Jeremy scheme about my future, my house, my life. They're in for a surprise. As the phone continued ringing, I got in my truck, tucked Todd Fisher's business card in my wallet, and started forming a plan in my mind that would show my ungrateful daughter who she was dealing with. I had built my life from scratch before. I could tear it down and rebuild it on my own terms. The phone stopped ringing, but I knew she'd call back. She always did when she wanted something from me. This time, she was in for more than she bargained for. By the time I pulled into my driveway, the shaky feeling in my hands was replaced with confidence. Todd Fisher's voice echoed in my head. It's your property, your decision. 25 years of second-guessing disappeared like Denver fog in the morning sun. Just as I was unlocking my front door, the phone rang again. I saw it buzzing on the kitchen counter where I had left it. Caitlin's name lit up on the screen, and I found myself smiling again since her betrayal. Let her stew a little. Let her wonder why her devoted dad wasn't jumping to answer. I poured myself a glass of water, took a deep breath, and picked up on the 6th ring. Dad, there you are. Caitlin's voice was overly cheerful. I started worrying when you didn't answer earlier. Oh, sorry, sweetheart, I was out running errands, I replied in a warm, grandfatherly tone. How's Phoenix treating you? Oh, you know how these business conferences are. But listen, I have the best news. She paused for impact. Jeremy and I have something really special planned for you. I tightened my hold on the phone, my knuckles turning white. Oh, we want to send you on a vacation. You need rest and relaxation after everything that happened after Mom passed. Her voice had that practiced sympathy I now knew as manipulation. We found this amazing place. It's like a resort but with medical staff on hand, just in case. A resort with medical staff. My jaw clenched so hard I thought my teeth might crack. That sounds wonderful, sweetheart. You shouldn't have bothered for me. Nonsense, we're family. Jeremy's voice came in from nearby, probably on speakerphone. We've got it all set up. Just pack some clothes and personal stuff. You know, the necessities. The necessities. Not the photo albums Ellen lovingly arranged. Not the furniture I carefully made. Just the basics for an old man being shipped off. Actually, Caitlin, I have a surprise for you too when you get back. Oh, Dad, what kind of surprise? She sounded truly excited, probably hoping I'd already signed some papers to ease their plans. I looked out at the garden Ellen cared for, at the porch swing where we planned our future. It's something I've been working on since our last conversation. I think you'll find it quite surprising. You're so sweet, Dad. We'll talk it through when we get back. Now that we're back, it's time to unwind. Take it easy and let us manage everything. Sweet. She had the nerve to call me sweet while plotting to take over everything in my life. Sure, honey, I love you. Yeah, love you too, Dad. See you Friday. The line went dead, and I set the phone down with hands steadier than they'd been for weeks. I walked over to my study, opened my laptop, and watched as it lit up with new possibilities I'd never even thought about. I hesitated before typing, real estate agents, Denver. The screen filled with results, equipping me for a fight I was finally ready to take on. All those years as a construction engineer taught me to do my homework before making a big choice. Today, that skill was coming in handy in a whole new way. I scanned agent profiles, analyzing their success stories and customer reviews as meticulously as I used to evaluate steel suppliers. Cherry Hills, Highlands Ranch, University Hills, all these neighborhoods had homes selling for the kind of cash Caitlin and Jeremy drooled over. One name kept popping up at the top, Brian Connor. At 43, he was known for his quick sales, averaging just 18 days from listing to closing. His picture showed a warm smile and confident eyes. He seemed like a guy who could get things done fast. The reviews were just what I needed. Brian got our house sold in 6 days. He found a cash buyer in 48 hours. Closing was a breeze, no issues. I looked at his phone number, bold beneath his creds. This was it. Calling him would change everything. No more Mr. Nice Old Man my daughter banked on. Ellen's photo was right there on my desk, almost as if she were keeping an eye on me. I could hear her voice in my head. "Roy, are you really sure about this?" I was positive, more certain than I'd felt since her funeral. With a steady hand, I dialed Brian Connor's number. "Brian Connor, Connor Real Estate. How can I help you today?" "Mr. Connor, my name is Roy Hayes. I'm looking to sell my house fast. How soon is that possible?" "Well, Mr. Hayes, it can vary, but under the right conditions, I've wrapped up deals in about 10 days with cash buyers. What's the timeline you're hoping for?" 10 days? My heart skipped. Was it really possible that quickly? Definitely. Denver's market is on fire now, particularly for well-kept homes in good neighborhoods. Could you tell me a bit about your house? I took a look around, seeing my kitchen for the first time through a buyer's eyes. It's a 2-story, 3,400 square feet, built in 1999, set in Cherry Creek, 3 bedrooms, 2.5 baths. I've maintained it well, did most of the work myself over the years. Brian sounded interested. That's precisely what my investors are interested in. Original owner, well-maintained in a solid neighborhood. Those are great selling features. Would you be open to a property evaluation? How soon could you come by? I asked. I could swing by this afternoon if that works. Say around 3:00? I glanced at the clock. It was a little after noon. 3:00 is perfect. Let me get you the address. After I hung up, the kitchen felt strangely quiet as the realization of my next steps hit me. In just 3 hours, someone would come through the home Ellen and I had built together, putting a price on our memories. For the next 2 hours, I cleaned like I was on a mission, a habit from the Ellen days when she insisted our home be spotless for visitors. I dusted the bay windows, straightened the couch cushions, polished each surface to a shine. But this cleanup felt different. It wasn't just about company. I was getting ready for something major. Right at 3, the doorbell rang. I smoothed out my shirt, took a deep breath laced with the lavender scent from Ellen's sachets, and moved toward the door. My hand trembled slightly on the brass doorknob I had installed myself all those years ago. Beyond that door was either my escape or my downfall. I twisted the knob and opened up to whatever was in store. Brian Connor stood there just as his picture showed, professional and welcoming, poised to help me turn the page. In his 40s, he walked in with confidence that could only come from successfully closing a ton of deals. Armed with a leather portfolio and a tablet, he stopped and said, "Wow," his eyes taking in everything around him. He couldn't help but admire the crown molding I had carefully installed and the hardwood floors Ellen and I had picked together. "Mr. Hayes, this is exactly what I was hoping for," he said, absorbing the details, noting the sun streaming through Ellen's favorite bay window. He appreciated the seamless flow from the living room to the dining area, which was possible after we removed a load-bearing wall and put up a beam. His compliments seemed genuine and professional. "You weren't joking about keeping this place up," he commented, snapping pictures with his tablet. "These original hardwood floors? Yeah, did them myself in 2001. Ellen wanted them to last, so we went with 3 4-inch solid oak," I shared, slipping into the familiar routine of talking about my work, feeling proud despite everything. "And what about this kitchen?" Brian queried, sliding his fingers along the granite countertop's edge. "Custom all around. Ellen picked the pattern because the gold veining made her think of sunlight," I said, my voice catching. I remembered spending 3 weekends making sure everything fit perfectly. Brian, ever the detail guy, was busy jotting notes, snapping photos of the custom cabinets, and checking faucets and outlets like someone who knew what buyers liked. "Mr. Hayes," he admitted, "I must say, in my 15 years, homes this well kept are rare." "I was an engineer," I replied. "I believe in doing it right the first time." "It shows," he said, nodding toward the living room. "Mind if I?" I followed him as he admired the open floor plan, the built-in bookcases around the fireplace, and how Ellen's touches had turned our project into a real home. This bay window here is totally custom. Built it for my wife, who wanted a reading nook. I could still see her there, engrossed in mystery novels, sipping tea, with her glasses perched on her nose. Brian took measurements, almost bursting with enthusiasm. "Mr. Hayes, I've got some comparable sales to show you." He pulled up listings, revealing that similar homes nearby were selling between $850,000 and $920,000. My heart raced. That's more than Caitlin and Jeremy's harsh guess. "Given your home's condition and custom features, I suggest listing it at $890,000. That should draw quick interest and get you the best price." $890,000 echoed in my head as I sank into Ellen's reading chair. "That much?" I asked, amazed. "Mr. Hayes," Brian said with certainty, "you've got a gold mine here. Homes like this, in this condition, are rare. I've got an investment group looking for a property just like yours." "An investment group?" I asked. "They specialize in high-quality rentals in established neighborhoods. They pay cash, no messing around with financing or repair negotiations. Close in 10 days. 10 days. Caitlin and Jeremy would be back from Phoenix in 8, expecting a dad ready to go along with their plans. "What's the rush?" I wondered, raising an eyebrow. "Why so quick?" Brian gave a quick grin. "No catch. Cash deals mean no loan holdups or appraisal surprises. They do their own inspections, but honestly, your home is in better shape than most new builds." I looked around the living room, recalling Caitlin's first steps, Christmases, birthdays, lazy Sundays with books. "When would I have to leave?" I asked. "The standard contract gives you 30 days after closing, but they're flexible if you need more time. The main thing is getting a clear title and handling the paperwork." Caitlin's sweet words, hiding a plan. Jeremy's cold logic to make me dependent. These thoughts echoed in my head, along with Ellen's advice about trust. "Let's do it," I decided. Brian's professional mask slipped for a moment, showing pure delight. "Great choice, Mr. Hayes." "I'm calling them now," I declared while grabbing my phone. Watching him dial, I heard him rave about my property like he'd hit the jackpot. "In Cherry Creek, original owner, in perfect shape, custom touches everywhere," he said excitedly. He hung up, beaming. "They want to move ahead quickly," he stated. "I'll have the initial paperwork prepared by tomorrow morning." Outside, the setting sun peeked through Ellen's bay window, casting the room in a golden glow as I chose to sell 25 years of memories. For the first time since that heart-wrenching phone call, I felt a long-lost sense of control. "How about 9 a.m.?" Brian asked, his words hanging in the air. His question waited. It was one that would transform everything. The steady tick of the hallway's grandfather clock, Ellen's 15th anniversary gift, filled the quiet room. 9 a.m.? That works perfectly." After Brian left, assuring me of contracts and timelines, I lingered alone in a house that soon wouldn't be mine. The evening sun cast a glowing picture through Ellen's windows, highlighting a life I was ready to move on from. But instead of sadness, anticipation filled me. Brian returned the next morning with contracts in hand, along with a notary and coffee for everyone, showing off the kind of polished approach I've always respected. With the same precision that made me a top-notch engineer, I went through every detail like checking blueprints. An $890,000 cash deal, closing in just 10 business days. The notary, a gentle-eyed, middle-aged lady, walked me through each signature. Barely any conditions, just a title search and a final walkthrough, plus an option to stay in the house for 30 days post-closing if needed. "Right, Mr. Hayes," she noted. "Most sellers prefer leaving early for peace of mind." Peace of mind. I almost laughed at that notion. The only tranquility I desired was from seeing Caitlin and Jeremy when they saw the mess they'd caused. I signed with steady hands, setting everything in motion. The following 3 days were a blur of paperwork and inspections. The title company dug through records, while a courteous crew from the investors appreciated my craftsmanship and found nothing to critique. "Your father-in-law certainly knew his craft," one mentioned to the heir, assuming I'd already left. "These floors, this electrical work, truly top-notch." Between days 4 and 6, I morphed into a man with a secret plan, hunting for a new place online. Something cozy but small, a fresh start with nearly $900,000 waiting in the bank. I spotted a place in Highlands, a senior community with golf courses and a community center, the kind Ellen and I always envisioned for our retirement. I also contacted storage units, deciding what to keep and what to leave behind. Definitely taking her china, jewelry box, photo albums, the essentials of our life together. By days 7 through 9, I felt a rush of newfound confidence. Each morning I awoke, feeling closer to freedom, ready to show my daughter that her supposedly confused dad was sharper than she ever imagined. Mrs. Patterson, the neighbor, noticed all the activity, inspectors and official-looking folks bustling around. "Just some work being done," I told her, not quite lying but not spilling the full truth just yet. On the 8th day, Brian called to confirm all was set. "Everything is ready for tomorrow's closing, Mr. Hayes. The buyers loved the inspection results. The wire transfer will be done the same day, so you'll have your funds immediately." That night, I packed a small suitcase with clothes and personal things, not to leave right away, but to be prepared for whatever came next. I gazed at Ellen's photo on our dresser and murmured, "I hope you understand why I'm doing this." Friday came bright and clear, the kind of spring day Ellen always thought showed off Denver's beauty. I dressed in my best suit, not the one for funerals, but the navy suit Ellen picked for Caitlin's college graduation. Graduation day. The title company's office buzzed with both professionalism and the sound of congratulations. The buyers had a sharp lawyer on their side, making sure everything was in order. Brian, the paperwork wizard, managed the entire process without a hitch. "Mr. Hayes, just sign here, here, and put your initials there." Each signature was like cutting a tie, saying goodbye to the deed, the settlement papers, and finally, letting go of 1247 Maple Street as it slipped out of Roy Hayes's ownership. "Here's your wire transfer confirmation, $890,000 after all the closing costs." Looking at that figure, it was more cash than I'd ever imagined in one place, more than Caitlin and Jeremy could have dreamed of too. We all shook hands, happy with how smoothly things had gone. Brian walked me to my truck, offering his help for any future real estate needs. "You made the right call, Mr. Hayes. Sometimes a new beginning is exactly what we need." Driving through neighborhoods I'd spent 25 years in, passing Caitlin's grade school and the park where Ellen and I strolled every Sunday morning, nostalgia didn't hit me. I just felt liberated. Parked in the driveway, I looked at the house that was no longer mine. The keys to the front door seemed weighted. Tomorrow, they'd be passed on to the new owners, and I'd step away from this life chapter for good. Caitlin and Jeremy would fly back from Phoenix in 3 days, expecting to find me ready to head off to their resort. Instead, they'd walk into an empty house and an unexpected lesson. Getting out of the truck, I approached the front door, pulling out my phone to make a call that would push my plan even further. I kept sitting there, staring at the home I'd built myself, now someone else's property, where Caitlin and Jeremy thought they'd meet their obedient dad. The keys felt like lead in my hand, but even with new owners, I had access for the next 30 days. Enough time to wrap up my plans. I drove to a Starbucks on Fairfax Avenue, parked, and called for a round-the-clock locksmith. That extra $200 for emergency service wasn't an issue anymore. "AAA emergency locksmith here, Eddie speaking." I explained I needed urgent lock changes. "How soon can it happen? I'll pay in cash." "I'll get there in 2 hours," Eddie said. Back at the house, waiting for Eddie in my truck, I watched Mrs. Patterson tend to her garden. She waved. I waved back, feeling the weight of deceiving those who cared about me. Eddie showed up in a van full of tools and equipment. In his 50s, he'd dealt with every kind of lock issue in Denver. Security concern? He asked, glancing at my door. New ownership. Better safe than sorry. He nodded, used to this kind of thing, and got started. I observed as he took away the locks I'd put in 15 years ago, those brass ones Ellen picked out to match the door knocker. These are high-quality locks, Eddie said. Whoever installed them knew their stuff. That would be me. I like a job done properly. The new locks, sleek and modern, made a precise click. Here are your new keys, 3 copies each for the front, back, and garage doors. Eddie passed me the unfamiliar keys. That'll be $450, including the emergency charge. I paid in cash, making sure nothing connected back to Roy Hayes. Once Eddie left, standing alone in the empty house, the hardest part began, condensing 25 years into what I could carry. Ellen's jewelry box, our wedding photos, and the novel she was reading when she passed, with the bookmark still on page 247, went into the boxes. Important papers, certificates, and Ellen's favorite cookbook, full of her handwritten notes. Those were the things I decided to take. Almost everything else stayed behind. Furniture holding our memories, photo albums capturing Caitlin's early days, Ellen's clothes in the closet still faintly carrying her scent. All of it left as it was. As I packed, I called Sunset Manor Apartments, explaining I needed a furnished 1-bedroom right away. We have a cozy unit available now, Mrs. Chen, the property manager, told me. A month-to-month lease? Sure, I'd take it. An hour later, I met Mrs. Chen at the complex, a simple but tidy place suited for seniors, complete with a community center and well-kept grounds. The 1-bedroom had all I needed for my new chapter. Cash payments are fine, Mr. Hayes. When are you thinking of moving in? Tonight. Mrs. Chen raised an eyebrow but didn't ask further. I signed the lease, handed over the first rent and the deposit, almost $3,000, a sum I'd never have spent so easily just 2 weeks ago. As evening fell, I packed my car and caught Mrs. Patterson watching from her window. She waved, and I felt the weight of all the ties I was cutting, the connections Caitlin and Jeremy had forced me to break. I walked through the empty rooms one last time, footsteps sounding different, as if the house belonged to someone else now. In the kitchen, where Ellen taught Caitlin to bake Christmas cookies, the living room where Caitlin opened gifts on Christmas morning, our bedroom where Ellen took her last breath with me by her side. I'm sorry, honey, I said to Ellen's memory. But you'd understand. You always said I was too generous for my own good. I locked the new locks and drove away from Maple Street, maybe for the last time, my rear-view mirror reflecting the life I left behind. By the time I reached Sunset Manor, the sun was setting, and my car was packed with the essentials. I carried my suitcase to my new front door, juggling unfamiliar keys. Inside the small apartment, I set down my suitcase and immediately grabbed my phone. The last part of my plan needed one more call, one more move to leave Caitlin and Jeremy completely surprised. The apartment felt like a motel room, functional but lacking personality, with generic furniture and the faint scent of industrial cleaner. Holding my phone, with Ellen's photo already on the nightstand, I thought about which bank could best keep nearly $900,000 away from kids who thought it was their inheritance. I opened my laptop on the little dining table and began looking into banks that specialized in large deposits. Colorado Community Bank caught my attention. It wasn't as big as the main chains, but it focused on personal service and discretion, exactly what I needed. Colorado Community Bank, Private Banking Division, said a voice. David Morrison here. Mr. Morrison, this is Roy Hayes. I need to open an account for a large deposit, about $890,000, I explained. A slight pause indicated that David was reshuffling his schedule mentally. We'd be happy to help you, Mr. Hayes. When is convenient for you to come in for a consultation? Monday morning at 9 a.m., I answered. Great. I'll have everything ready for you, he confirmed. The weekend spread out like uncharted territory ahead of me, having never lived anywhere but the house Ellen and I built together. The small apartment felt like exile, but it was self-imposed. My choice, not theirs. On Saturday morning, I made coffee in the unfamiliar kitchen and carefully unpacked my stuff. I placed Ellen's jewelry box on the dresser, my engineering awards on the shelf, and our wedding photo next to the bed where I'd now sleep alone in a place Ellen never visited. I went to the grocery store and bought enough food for one. Simple meals, not like the ones Ellen would cook with love. The cashier, a young guy with warm eyes, asked if I was new around. "Just moved in," I said, "starting fresh." Sunday morning, I discovered a coffee shop called Brews and Views, just 3 blocks from my apartment. Sarah, the barista with cool purple streaks in her hair, made a brew that hit the spot. "New in town?" she asked, not nosy, just friendly. I said I was a retired engineer, looking for a quieter life. She said I'd chosen the right neighborhood for that. People here were quite laid back. I took a seat by the window, sipping coffee, watching the regular Saturday morning scene, dogs on leashes, strollers passing by. It brought back memories of the simple mornings I used to share with Ellen. But instead of feeling sad, I was buzzing with a feeling I hadn't experienced in a long time: anticipation. On Monday, I dressed in my best suit and made my way to the Colorado Community Bank. David Morrison, much younger than I had imagined, perhaps around 45, exuded that professional warmth people acquire from managing others' life savings daily. "Mr. Hayes, what can we do for you today?" he asked. After selling my house, I wanted to find a bank focusing on personal connections rather than fees. David listened intently, nodding as if he exactly understood. "We're exactly what you're looking for," he assured me. I explained my situation: a widower who had sold his home and needed a straightforward, trustworthy banking relationship. He asked only the necessary questions to set up my account, nothing too intrusive. "I'll need to transfer my funds from my previous bank," I noted. "No problem," he answered, ready to get things rolling that same day, promising the funds would be clear by Wednesday. He quickly set up everything: online banking, a debit card, a checkbook, all of it. Given the amount, he recommended a premium package for added security. I signed the paperwork, becoming customer number 847293 at Colorado Community Bank, ensuring Caitlin and Jeremy couldn't touch nearly $900,000. Tuesday and Wednesday passed smoothly as I adapted to my new routine. Mornings began with coffee at Brews and Views, where Sarah remembered my order and even asked about my weekend. I spent my afternoons wandering the neighborhood, finding a small park where retirees sat feeding pigeons and reading. Wednesday afternoon, the call I'd been anticipating came. David called with great news. "Mr. Hayes, your funds have cleared. Your account is fully operational," he said. I expressed my gratitude, hung up, and surveyed my modest apartment. Ellen's photo still adorned the nightstand, watching over the simpler life I was constructing from the fallout of my daughter's betrayal. For the first time since Ellen's passing, I felt like I was steering my life forward. That night, sitting in my one chair, not from Ellen's reading nook, not the recliner where I heard Caitlin's hurtful words, just an ordinary chair in my own space, I opened my laptop to look up mini surveillance cameras. My fingers hovered above the keys, knowing this purchase was vital to my last plan for payback. Caitlin and Jeremy were returning on Friday, likely assuming I'd be easy to handle. They were in for a surprise as they'd soon learn their burden had become their problem to solve. My screen was filled with surveillance choices, from obvious models to those cleverly disguised as everyday items. After about half an hour, I found the perfect one: a wireless mini camera hidden inside something resembling a phone charger. It was an engineer's delight: Wi-Fi enabled, controllable via an app, motion detection, long battery life, and high-quality video. Best of all, it could stream live to my phone as long as there was internet. I clicked purchase, paying an extra $40 for next-day delivery, with the total at $149, a price that would have given me pause weeks ago but seemed trivial now. With the camera ordered, I turned to writing the note, a summary of everything for Caitlin and Jeremy when they found out their keys wouldn't work. My first draft was too filled with anger and raw pain. The second was too detached, failing to convey how deeply their actions affected me. But the third got it right. It expressed dignity, but still hit hard, balanced love and finality. I penned it in the neat, clear handwriting Ellen had always loved. I've always admired those who stand firm. Dear Caitlin and Jeremy, if you're seeing this, it means everything went off without a hitch. I overheard the two of you discussing how a nursing home would be better for someone like me since you think I'm such a burden. I also heard you planning how to sell my house for a quick buck. Surprise! The house is already sold for $890,000 in cash, safely stashed in a new bank account. I've relocated to a place where I'm appreciated and not just endured. So, quit worrying about me, and maybe start fretting about your own living arrangements. Your things are boxed up at Denver Moving and Storage on Kfax Avenue. You have 30 days to collect them before storage charges kick in. For 42 years, I gave you my all, and how do you repay me? By plotting to shove me aside and snatch away my life's work. I hope you've learned your lesson. Love, Dad. On a Thursday morning, a FedEx truck arrived at my apartment with a little package for me. Inside was my new surveillance gear. I spent an hour in the kitchen testing it out, fiddling with the app on my smartphone. The video quality is top-notch, sharp enough to catch even the softest whispers. Later, I took one final drive to my old place. I hadn't handed over the garage opener yet, so I parked inside to avoid prying eyes. My hands shook a bit as I used my new keys to unlock the door. Despite being empty, it still smelled like home. Ellen's lavender sachets, the lemon oil on the furniture, and the memories of 25 years of family dinners. But there were newer things that tugged at my heart. Caitlin and Jeremy's suitcases by the stairs and their mail strewn on the kitchen counter. They were treating my home like their personal storage unit. As part of my plan, I set up the camera charger by the front door, making sure it pointed right where it needed to be. The app gave me a perfect view of the entryway, exactly where I'd leave my note. I tested the motion sensor, walking back and forth until I was sure it'd catch everything. Then, I taped the envelope inside the front door, right at eye level so they couldn't overlook it. Standing in the living room for one last time, I brushed my fingers across the spot on the mantel where Ellen's photo had sat for 23 years. Soon, new owners would hang their photos here and fill the home with their memories. We made it, sweetheart, I whispered in Ellen's memory. Justice is sweet. I locked the place with my new key, double-checked the camera feed from my car, and drove back to my apartment. Everything was set, the motion detector ready, battery fully charged, and my phone ready to buzz the moment Caitlin and Jeremy realized their keys wouldn't work anymore. From my comfy chair back home, I kept my gaze on my phone, watching the empty doorway through the camera app. The timestamp showed 6:30 p.m. on Thursday. Tomorrow, Caitlin and Jeremy would return from their trip, likely chatting about their plans for me and counting my money in their heads. They had zero idea their grateful old dad had turned into their worst nightmare. I woke up Friday morning bubbling with anticipation, ready to watch justice served after all these years of putting up with wrongs. My coffee never tasted so good, and even my small apartment felt less cramped as I sat there, phone in hand, eyes on the camera showing my empty old foyer. By 4:30 p.m., they should be rolling up. I knew their routines by heart. Caitlin aimed to leave Phoenix by noon to dodge traffic, and Jeremy was a stickler for speed limits. Any second, they'd be pulling into what used to be my driveway. I glanced at Ellen's picture on my nightstand. I hope you understand, honey. They left me no other options. At 5:15 p.m., my phone buzzed. Emotion alert. Jeremy's black SUV pulled up the driveway. My heart raced as I watched the screen. Caitlin got out first, stretching like she'd just been on a long journey. Jeremy followed, casually unloading their suitcases, confident they were home to lay claim on what they thought was theirs. My eyes stayed glued to the screen as they approached the front door, Caitlin fishing out her keys while Jeremy settled the luggage beside them. Caitlin plopped her bags down and tried to unlock the door, but the key wouldn't turn. Frustrated, she examined the keys and gave it another shot, shaking it vigorously. "Weird," she said loudly, the words blaring through my phone's speaker. "The key's not working." Jeremy, who'd looked exhausted, suddenly appeared concerned. "I'll take a look at the back door," he suggested, vanishing around the house as Caitlin continued her battle with the front lock. He returned a few minutes later, panic written all over his face. "The back door's shut tight, and the garage remote's useless too," he said, his voice finally catching up with the anxiety I'd anticipated. "Caitlin, it looks like someone changed the locks." "What? No way," she countered. "Dad doesn't even know any locksmiths." Jeremy inspected the door like a detective, his analytical mind ticking away. "These locks are brand new. This wasn't a mistake." Shaking, Caitlin pulled out her phone. "I'm calling Dad," she announced, dialing that old landline number I had disconnected a few days ago. But after several unanswered rings and no voicemail, confusion crept across her face. "Try his cell," Jeremy suggested. "He doesn't have one, remember? We were supposed to get him one for emergencies," she replied, fear lacing her words. Jeremy started checking the windows, his earlier confidence nowhere in sight. "This window seems to be unlocked. I can help you get in." I watched as she climbed through the kitchen window that I had purposely left open, her suit catching on the sill. She quickly came around to let Jeremy in through the front door. As he came in with the bags, they both halted at the sight of a white envelope stuck to the door with their names scrawled in my handwriting. Caitlin's hands trembled as she pulled out the letter and started reading. Jeremy glanced over her shoulder. Their faces changed from confusion to shock to disbelief, finally settling on horror. "He sold the house," Caitlin shouted. "How could he do this to us?" Jeremy seized the letter, reading it again, hoping for a different message. "The old man tricked us," he grumbled. $890,000. Caitlin began to cry, mascara streaking down her cheeks. "He kept everything. We were counting on that money for our future." Jeremy's fake, perfect son-in-law veneer cracked. "Your future?" he retorted. "This is your dad, Caitlin. You should have been in charge." "My fault?" she exclaimed, years of pent-up frustration boiling over. "You're the one who kept calling him a burden, who was pushing for the nursing home." "He was a burden. Look around. We're without a home now. Our lease ends next week." The irony was almost too good. Here they were arguing over losing a home, the very thing they'd planned to do to me with their nursing home scheme. "Call a lawyer," Caitlin urged. "We have to be able to do something. He can't just sell without telling us." "And with what money?" Jeremy replied scathingly. "In case it slipped your mind, I got fired 6 months ago. Your marketing job barely covers the cars." "Then find work," she shouted. "Who wants to hire a financial advisor with a shady past?" Watching as reality hit her, no home, no inheritance, and Jeremy's career in shambles, she whispered, "How could he be so cruel?" "Just like you were planning," Jeremy shot back. The old man was smarter than both. Through the phone, I watched them slump into my old furniture, soon to be gone when the new owners moved in. Caitlin hid her face in her hands while Jeremy stared at my letter, realizing he'd been outmaneuvered. I turned off the camera feed, satisfied. I went into my cozy kitchen and opened Ellen's wine. I indulged in a special bottle from the house, a 2018 Bordeaux I'd saved for a big moment that never happened. Pouring a glass, I raised it to Ellen's photograph and toasted, "To you, my love, justice served." The wine tasted like sweet victory. They learned not to cross the person who truly has your back. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number, and I could bet it was Caitlin trying a new way to reach out. Without reading it, I deleted the message and turned my phone off altogether. As I wandered to the window, The Denver skyline was bathed in the golden glow of the setting sun. Somewhere in that city, my daughter and her husband were dealing with the consequences of their own actions. In what used to be my home, they were beginning to understand that the issues they faced no longer involved me. They were their own to handle. For the first time since Ellen's passing 2 years ago, I felt truly free. I wasn't anyone's load to bear anymore. I was independent, with my own finances and decisions to make, and a future stretching out ahead like an open road. Roy Hayes had moved on and wasn't looking back.